Can I take you back a little early? I mean, it was
Yes.
in early 60s. And at that time, I guess not many people thought of being an entrepreneur. And yet you took the plunge, you decided, you left a good job, and essentially you recommended it to your friend. So you're pretty set, I presume, at that point that you wanted to become an entrepreneur. So what motivated you so much? What made you so sure that you will be successful as an entrepreneur?
It's the surety of success is something that comes with the bravado of youth. When you are 20, 25, when you're in your 20s, you really don't think too much about the future.
Welcome to Single World News Podcast. Today we have the famous entrepreneur Varadarajan Sesamani ji joining us, and we'll learn from him his wonderful entrepreneurial journey. He's an IIT alumni, a distinguished IIT alumni, and he has a very exciting career for his own venture for over 42 years. So, Varadarajan ji, please tell us a bit more, since you left IIT Kharagpur, you were a mechanical engineer. How did you begin and why did you begin your entrepreneurial journey? And more. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Anshuman. It is wonderful to be on a channel which is run by an IITian from Kharagpur. It really gives me a thrill. Uh, and you called me a famous. I really don't know where that word applies, but I have had an independent path of business all through. I graduated from IIT. A little bit about myself. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur in 1969. And my father was living at that time. My father was serving in Siliguri in the army, and I went home to Delhi because Delhi is where the non-family accommodation was given for my father. So I went to Delhi to get cool and start a career and think about a career. I had attended only one interview in Kharagpur, and that was with Mahindra Sintered Products. And the MD of that was also a Kharagpur graduate.
Okay.
And I ended up convincing him that the other candidate from my own class was a better fit for him. And, I had to attend this interview because this was mandated by the HR department. And we had a very good chat and we agreed to meet later on, in Bombay or Delhi or something like that. I told him I was going to set up my own business.
Okay.
So I went to Delhi, but I had not entirely settled on whether I should start a business. So I explored the IAS and I explored, one more job opportunity because my father said you must attend this interview, which was DCM Data Products, DCM, Delhi Cloth Mills, which offered a very high salary. I ended up fighting with the interview person on the question of whether the moon shot at that time, which was taking place, took place at the point of translunar injection or whether it was when it was caught into the to the moon's orbit. So that was
Okay.
the end of my chances of career with somewhere else. Then so this was all in the next 2 months, and then. My friend and partner, Mr. Raghunandan, who was also my classmate, roll number 181, mine was 191. So
Okay.
you could say he was senior. So we both were in the same class, in the same hall, Nehru Hall, the same wing, B block, first floor. And we used to meet every alternate day in some coffee shop in Delhi. And we decided to use an opportunity in the oil field business where someone was offering an agency for equipment.
Okay.
We knew nothing, read up a little bit in the American library, and then we went for this interview and we got the agency, which was something called a blowout preventer,
Okay.
a new type, which was an annular blowout preventer. And we had to present ourselves as people who knew something about blowout preventers. We passed the interview, you could say, got the agency, and we did business for 3 to 4 years beyond that. And for this, I started a company called Carmack, a Of course, the name indicates that I wanted to make cars, but I never got around to making cars. So we had this agency, but agency didn't satisfy us. So we went to Bangalore the following year and set up a company to run a tool room. So as many would know, a tool room is a facility where you have all the mechanical machining processes. So we had a lathe, a milling machine, shaping machine, drilling machine, all the usual stuff which is in a very small workshop. So in 2000 square feet, we got started, and we presented ourselves as people who will convert your idea into fact. That means we would if you say you want to make a particular kind of machine, we would design it. We had our drawing board and all that, and then we would design it, we would manufacture it, and we would sell it to you. So this business progressed because it had to also take on the other capability that a tool room is supposed to give. That means we are supposed to make tools also, like punching tools, jigs and fixtures, all these kind of things. Over a career of 11 years, we made all these jigs, fixtures, and everything. And we were pretty well known in Bangalore. The name was Bangalore Tool Works. And there were many jokes by IITians on, Bangalore Tool Works. But we didn't mind. We had business. We were doing business. We also developed cooker extruder, which was invented by us, in which you pass the wheat or the grain or the whatever it is through our machine, and it would puff up, just like today you get these cheese puffs and all that. Thereafter, we took this and then we set up a complete facility in corn products in Bombay, thereafter in Britannia, and that was the basis of the all these crunchies which are made by many of these companies, which you see now, which you eat with tea and all that. So we got into the food business in a manner of speaking. For a long time, we thought we would remain in the food business. But at the end of this, we sold this company because of management reasons. And we were left in 1981, yeah, completely with no job. We had sold the company. We didn't get much of compensation. The big startup stories of millions and crores was not yet upon us. So I used part of my money, whatever money I had, to go and visit the Hanover Fair, which I had wanted to go for many years. I said, we need to know everything about engineering. Let's visit the Hanover Fair.
Okay.
So this was one phase of our life that my partner and me worked together, except that I went off to the Hanover Fair. And at the end of it, he was left with some money. I was left with less money. So that is where we stood. And we used to meet in coffee shops thinking what to do next.
So can I
So
take
now it is
yeah
next.
yeah can I take you back a little early? I mean, it was
Yes.
in early 60s, and at that time, I guess not many people thought of being an entrepreneur, and yet you took the plunge. You decided, you left a good job, and essentially you recommended it to your friend. So you're pretty set, I presume, at that point that you wanted to become an entrepreneur. So what motivated you so much? What made you so sure that you will be successful as an entrepreneur?
It's the surety of success is something that comes with the bravado of youth. When you are 20, 25, when you're in your 20s, you really don't think too much about the future. When we made a loss in this in the first company, Bangalore Toolworks, we said, this year loss, next year we'll see, and we were all at the grand level of 3 lakhs of turnover. So what would have been the profit? Like 30,000 or 40,000. So there was nothing. It was nothing to write home about. But in society, people would say, "Oh, you set up your own company. Wow, tycoon." So we were called tycoon, though we didn't have even the amount that the tycoon would have in naya paisa in our pocket. But we were, happy-go-lucky. That was the stage to be happy-go-lucky. And the changes started coming when we got married, and then we need to prove to others that we are capable of doing something. But the confidence was not of knowledge. The confidence was of arising from the fact that I was very sure that I would only do this. I didn't want to answer to somebody. And my partner was equally sure that he wouldn't want to answer to somebody. And so it was just, he had to answer to me, I had to answer to him.
So if you
That is why we work together.
so I'm saying in your batch, how
Yeah.
many do you think had chosen entrepreneurship like you? Starting your own
In
business.
in my batch, it was known that only Raghunandan and me were entrepreneurs. That means we were together. And we even were visited by KGPNs in subsequent years, 2, 3 years, who came to see who are these guys who set up their own company just after leaving Kharagpur. So we have probably, I mean, at that time, it was go straight for a job. That was very clear. If you got 400 rupees a month, you've got as much as anyone else would have got.
True.
And the story is, or let's say the trend is, that in the beginning, the jobs, the salaries were slightly higher for engineers and others. Little did we know that geologists, geophysicists, chemical engineers, process engineers, and architects would subsequently get much higher remuneration than any of us. We would continue to get 500 or 600 while they were at 900 or 1,000, 1,100. So mechanical engineering was the first choice in the 60s. I think it was not from the money point of view, it was not a good choice. But the fact is, when you have a mechanical mind, if you have a general engineering mind, mechanical engineering is something that does not box you in the beginning. So, so both Raghunandan and me, we both did the route of mechanical engineer because you get first day of interview or you are among the first few, then your natural choice is mechanical engineering. Today it's different, but that is what it was at that time. And having reviewed, as I am talking to you, when I review, think backward, I think it was a good choice for me and for him because from mechanical engineering, we subsequently moved into many other areas. We've done chemical projects, we've done electronics projects, we've done pharma projects, food projects, and a whole host of projects, including building residential buildings or inventing new processes which had nothing to do with mechanical engineering. So mechanical engineering is, while it is mechanical engineering, it actually imbibes within it some aspects of general processes. You get a general understanding. So in one way, I feel mechanical engineering suited us. And so we were together in both in thinking of the work as well as doing the work and diversifying whenever we had to diversify.
So after you were continuing the journey, I kind of
So
observed.
okay, so the career path. Okay.
Yes.
So I personally was once again, or in fact, Raghunandan and me both, we were once again in a hiatus because we just finished hands-on, designing and making tools and jigs and fixtures and all that. And, we used to, I have often been involved in running the machines. I would, if the milling machine operator is not there, I'm also operating the milling machine and so on. Then we had to do some welding. We got a job for, like 2,000, some welding carriers, job carriers for Bharat earth movers. So we didn't have enough people. So I also had to sit and, do some welding. And the welder would tell me, "Bhai, ye theek nahi hai, wo theek nahi hai, ye karo, wo karo." But welding is something that gives you a feel when the high current passes. You feel you're really doing something. And milling machine, we naturally took to it. So there was a lot of practical experience that we got or had to do because you have to step in when the operators are not there. The grinding machine operator is drunk. Then you have to send him off, and then you have to deal with it yourself. And along with it, during the machining and all that Bangalore Toolworks days, we had to learn finance, we had to learn sales, we had to learn marketing. I don't know what we learned well, but we learned something, and the test would be subsequently. So, what happened was that I used to go to my Rotary Club meetings regularly. Earlier, I was going in a car, now I was going in a moped. And so one of my Rotary friends said, भाई अभी तुम क्या करते हो, तुम्हारा फैक्ट्री बेच दिया है? हाँ बेच दिया. So he said, अभी क्या करते हो? मैंने बोला 6 महीने मैंने डिसाइड कर लिया कि हम हॉलीडे करेंगे. Which is what my dad asked me, what are you going to do? I said, oh, I'm not doing anything for 6 months. I'm going to relax. I've worked too hard, like 12-hour days and 15-hour days, working 6.5 days a week. That means up to Saturday, and then Sunday you go for half a day. This became a practice which I said is very unhealthy. So that is because I was 32 or something. So I guess I felt it was unhealthy at that time.
What do
Then
you feel
one,
now?
huh?
What do you feel now?
No, I feel it was, it suited my temperament to do what was right by me. But I guess there are times when I should have worked harder, and there are times when I should not have worked that hard. But meetings and everything, we had to go smart. Somebody is bringing a proposal. You go talk to him. You have to look smart. You have to be smart. You should have read all the newspapers. You should have understood every new process. And that was my interest. I was always interested in new processes, for example, how to machine a five-sided polygon, these kind of things, all these things to understand. They're very good. As you keep learning, then you remain a learning person and make your organization also a learning organization. Uh, Later, I felt today what I feel is if it's the money game, probably at an earlier stage, maybe at the age of about 28 or 30, uh, we should have been able to finalize a product, and we should have been able to multiply that product. That is one thing we did not really do. We tried out three or four products. For example, a fan switch, which has got those, slow, medium. So that
Right.
switch is pretty complicated. We wanted to make that, and so we actually manufactured that. Because my theory was that um, when you sell a product, when you make the tool, you are enabling the product manufacturer to make money. You are making money on the tool, but you're not getting volume.
Right.
So we were stuck in that, and until the end of Bangalore Toolworks, the only product that we really developed thoroughly was the cooker extruder, of which we sold only three before we sold the company itself. So that experience could not be delved into or could not be expanded. So the next stage was we had almost no money. Now, but here is this friend who's saying, why don't you run my granite factory? I said, I don't know anything about granite. He said, that's not an issue. You are an engineer. तुम कर सकते हो. So I ran a granite factory for about a year. Then the same person said, can you set up he was very impressed with my running of the granite factory. I also discovered financial irregularities in that factory. I tried to clean up all the financial irregularities, but I got the opportunity to do the flooring of the Tirupati Balaji temple. Entire quadrangle was the granite which had been specially picked. I got it cleaned up, polished, and laid it on that. It was a massive area. I did that. That gave me another type of satisfaction. And the workers finally had day and night work, which they didn't have for many, 2 years or something. So I revived the factory. But the entrepreneur then decided to set up a completely new factory at a larger budget.
Okay.
So I moved straight from, 30, 40 lakh operation to a 5 crore operation.
Okay.
And so all the equipment sourcing, etc., from different countries, from Italy, from Italy, the UK, and the US.
Okay.
All these equipment. So I designed the factory, though I was not an architect. I did the complete layout and the physical designing of all the foundations and everything. All that was done, and the factory was operational in a year. And I did that with just myself, and I was more like an employee of that company, though I was not an employee, because he's a friend.
Right.
So that was my first industrial, you could say, factory setting up experience. And then rapidly others came and said, we hear you've done work for Mr. Vinay Poddar, so can you do for us? And there's another Marwadi from all Calcutta connections.
Okay.
Another Marwadi from Calcutta came to me and said, आपसे मिलना है. We had a meeting. He said, मुझे एक नया फैक्ट्री लगाना है. सुना है कि आपको पता है. So I said, we will discuss. Do you want to be in food? Do you want to be in food? Do you want to be in electronics, mechanical? You tell me. ये आपका स्पेशलिटी क्या है? I said, मेरा कोई स्पेशलिटी नहीं है. And we ended up setting up for him the first hybrid microcircuit manufacturing company in the country. Very first one. Okay. It was a new technology even in the world, but it was a newer technology for India. So this young man means he was 4 years younger than me. And we set up the factory, it got operated, became the biggest. And then thereafter, he got ambitious and he wanted to set up other factories like optical cable manufacturing. We set up that also for him. And microwave communication, we set up that also for him. So in these, let's say up to 15 years from Kharagpur, our specialty became that we must know the subject we are going to, of the factory that we are going to put up, but we need not know it completely, and we would disclose to the client, this is new for me, and this, so we will study existing information and we'll learn from the collaborators and we would set up the plant.
Okay.
That is, we would do everything, whatever we did, you had to accept. We would not put money into the company, you had to pay us the fees. So
Right.
our fees went up. And so we had a very good time for 10 years. Different projects. Raghunandan would take some projects and I would take some projects. That is how it was divided. The very first project I did myself, but all the others invited him. We got together, we set up the same firm that we had, Engineering Resources Group.
Right.
And we didn't want it to be called Sita Rama something or, Hanuman this. We just wanted it to be a non-denominational name. So we set up this plant and we did about 180 to 200 projects. I'm not sure of the number. We moved from the hybrid microcircuits to food, to various products in between, pharmaceutical, food, water for injection. And we did work for some of the biggest companies in the country, companies like Baxter, Exide. We set up Exide's plants we did work on their plant in Bombay. We set up a new plant for them, the biggest in the world. We set it up among their facilities. That was in Bangalore. We did some work in Chennai. We did some work in Kolkata. So we did all these projects, and we had a long innings with Excite, 3-4 years. So at the same time, we normally work on number of projects. So we would at any moment do about between 6 to 12 projects simultaneously because we
What
are
was
not
the
full time.
size? What was the size of the team?
Size was, we have done very small projects of 2 crores also, but we have our biggest was about 100 and odd crores, and the typical average would be about 40 to 50 crores. The last project that we did was for a company called Griffith Laboratories. It was their 23rd factory in the world, and it got declared as the best factory that they had in Griffith in the food business in all the 23 of those factories. And it was a food ingredient factory. We had to set in all the data. In every project, we had to keep the data secure because even till today, the companies are not operating, but the data is secure.
So
So
what are
that was in the consulting business. We closed the facilities in 2016,
I have couple of
44
I have
years.
couple of questions. One is what one is like what are the skills that you need to set up a factory? You know,
To set up
obviously
a,
set up a factory of such scale that you mentioned
okay,
from 100 plus crores a kind of factory. And what are the key
yes,
skills you
okay.
needed and how did you pick them?
So what we first do is, I mean, I will tell you the practice that we have arrived at. This is what I would do if someone asks me. today to set up a factory. In fact, somebody called me yesterday. We had a meeting to set up a new plant in Bangalore. And so the process is that we would first ask them general questions about the factory. What are the products? Where do you need it to be set up? Have you already decided on a piece of land? Because land is the most critical. I'm a strong believer in Vastu. So therefore, I look for land in its basic form, whether it fulfilled the Vastu of an enterprise. Later, we would get into looking at whether the land, the shape, the levels, etc., would conform to what is also perhaps required for the concerned factory. Because there's a Vastu which is concerned with generalities. You know, is it facing north or east? Are you a businessman? Are you a homeowner? So that would be one criterion. And then when you get into the focal point of what is this for, then you would also apply other principles of Vastu. Actually, it's a seamless process. I'm just probably academically saying that these are two separate things, but in practice, you actually would follow them together along with your engineering. And so this is very important and has become more and more important with time. And one interesting thing you may like to know is I had a German client and I was presenting. It's a different, interesting story in ISA, in Engineering Resources Group. So I was asked to set up a textile dyeing factory, to dye with colors, etc. And the client was in Germany. The client was a manufacturer of threads. So we had to basically set up a plant to make threads. This factory is the world's most famous thread dyeing factory. So they make colored thread. It's the most often used thread by garment exporters. So they are going to set up a plant in Bangalore, in Delhi, but they wanted this to be the plant we were setting up was in Haryana. So it was quite large. They were bringing in 150 crores of equipment, and our physical scope of creation of facility was about 80 crores. So first, this is about the Vastu. I have just jumped a little bit. I hope you don't mind.
No,
So,
please.
so they gave me details of what they want, and they said, "You make a presentation to us." So I was given 30 days. So I went to Germany. I made the presentation. The board of directors, vice chairman was there, and so I explained. I started explaining. Then he said, "Before you continue, I have one question. Have you taken Vastu into account?" I said, "Yes, I've taken Vastu into account." I said, I also told him that I'm very surprised because you, a German, are asking me about Vastu. He says, everyone knows this term. Anyone who's doing business in India needs to understand. And of course, I had already set it up with Vastu because every project I take on for anyone, the Vastu would be checked because Vastu affects his prosperity. And if I can do it without affecting his productivity, his process, and if you can take into account everything, whether it's HACCP or whatever it may be, there should be no objection, and as long as it is cost effective. And in my case, or I think all Vastu experts would do this, the process understanding is simultaneous with the understanding of the layout, the costing. We make it cost effective first. You need to make it cost effective. We are in India. We are not here to, give show. We need to see that the engineering and the architecture are merged together with the forces of nature. You would do that if you went to China. So why not in India? So this is what we did for that. So coming back to the projects, this was my last project was what I explained to you. It was a food ingredients project.
Right.
Finished it in 2016. It was the largest of that company, that's Griffith Laboratories. It was the largest project that they did in the world at that time. And except now they wanted us for the next project, but we said it was a little too much. We wanted to retire because by then I was probably, about 68 or 69. And answering to clients all over the world was not my cup of tea by then. So let me go back to the principles of setting up of a project,
Yes.
which you had asked. So the first thing we would understand is the first thing we would understand is what are the general questions. Then we would ask for the product. Then we would ask for the process. What is the process? Who's giving the process? Are they giving the process? Do we need to finalize the process? Then we would ask about land, what they had already done, etc. Now, with that, ourselves, without knowing too much about that, because they don't have any more information, that information needs to be found out. I would prepare a layout of that plant
Okay.
just from general understanding. It always is very helpful to do the layout of the plant because the consultant needs to understand that a client, while he talks of his requirement for the product, the layout, the low cost, and things like that, the first interest they have is what is the likely amount of land you may require, and what is the likely factory construction area that you would require. So you must know where you stand. If you are thinking that this product, this factory definitely requires about, let us say, 20,000 square feet of space and 500 square feet of another floor, and then the factory layout, you would already visualized that the equipment process, etc., would be in the ground floor. I'm talking about a typical case,
Right.
and then the offices, etc., would be on the first floor. So perhaps that is what, let's say, taking a typical case, and without any specialized processes. If you do this, and if the factory has, if you do this, you will at least be prepared. Then the client tells you, no, I have got 5,000 square feet of land. Well, boss, you can't do anything with 5,000 square feet of land. You need at least 35,000 to 40,000 square feet of land so that you can take the FSI into account. And then you can say, this is how the layout would be. And you can then say, what are the qualities of the land? But somewhere you will be faced with the client demanding to consider the land that he's already purchased. Now he's already spent 2 crores. Now what are you going to do? Or he spent 10 crores because land is nowadays becoming the biggest investment.
Right.
So we are prepared by practice. That means by looking at it and saying, this is what it should be on paper. Something like what you would do sitting in a coffee shop. Okay.
Okay.
And then when you have something in front of you, the client will open up and you can ask many more questions on a face-to-face meeting, and you can develop this, or even in a non-face-to-face meeting, and then you can get into making a proposal and saying this project is likely to cost so much, my fees are likely to be so much, and these are the things that you are likely to require to do. You may need so much more land, or you may not need so much land. There should be no marsh in the land, water table should be such and such. So you can discuss. So this is actually the first stage. And once you cross this stage, you are actually doing the proposal. You are looking at the process, you are looking at the proposal, and you are able to, after some more man days of work, you are able to provide a rough project report so that the client is able to, so that you can present something to the client. So, so that is how we do this part.
So, in the process, we had to hire a lot of staff and probably fire also. So, what are your some of the strategies, or if you'd like to share
Sorry,
about on retention of this
could you
staff?
just repeat that? I am not able to hear.
Sure, I'm saying over the years, you have hired and fired, I'm sure, a lot of your employees.
Yes.
So, what are the retention strategy that you have chosen and you have found to be effective in your business?
So the retention strategy is, if we deal with the employees very fairly, you will never have to fire someone. They will go on their own. We had a fairly high retention rate in our consulting firm. We had something like an average stay of, we did this calculation long back. I think average was 10 years or so.
Okay.
So we didn't really have to change people very often. Three people retired from the company because they crossed the age. The company ran for about 40, 44 years. And so we only had to fire one person. And that one person, because he did something very wrong, he asked the client for some money to pass a bill. And so that was something anathema to us. I went and immediately asked him to leave. He was apologetic, which is very good, but we couldn't keep him on.
True.
So that too, he was a senior person. At that time, he was like 55 years old. And I was, of course, older than him, but, it just felt bad. So we never really had to do that. Now, in my present company, which is ISA Impex, which which I'm running right now, I've moved completely to manufacturing.
Okay.
There is no consulting we do now.
Okay.
So this is a company which is a family business. It started, as I said, in 1974 or 76. I didn't have, except advisory or family discussions, I didn't have much to do with it. I would advise my father. He was running the show. He is a retired army officer. So he ran the show. It ran very well. It was a trading house at that time. You would buy parts and sell in India, but we would stick to high technology. For example, ultraviolet testing. That means using the effect of ultraviolet among other parameters to test the longevity of a particular product or the degradation in a particular product.
Okay.
The other area where we are operating is cryogenic cooling, where we used to sell the machines which were sold by our principal from the US. Now, for the last 25 years, this machine, we are making our own machine. In fact, currently I'm carrying out trials of cryogenic cooling machine, which should reach about minus 160. Not yet reach success. It will take probably a week or two more. Of course, we are always optimistic when you try to do something new. We spent a lot of money on the prototype, so it better work next week. And the third thing is we work in thermoelectrics, where thermoelectrics. So thermoelectrics, to put it shortly, is a solid state device using semiconductor metals, semiconducting metal oxides and metals
Peltier
to
effect.
create temperature difference when you apply a voltage to two plates. You have a hot side and a cold side, and you can reverse it. So we do a lot of work for some of the multinationals who do small coolers. You want to cool only 20 watts or 30 watts or 100 watts. So this is the area where thermoelectrics works very well. And we have been in it for quite some time. We have developed thermoelectric coolers for a number of applications. We've also used the reverse. Somebody in Raman Research Institute wanted to measure the effect of the heat developed by sun, the energy that sunlight can give onto a surface. So that is of the order of 0.002 degrees centigrade or 3 degrees centigrade. And we created a setup for him to do that. So a number of interesting things have been done. Also, for the Institute of Science, we have done what you would call a thermoelectric power generator, 28 watt power generator, where you use the exhaust of a truck and are able to simulate voltage on the output terminals. And we got an efficiency of around 5.5%, which is very decent. And using all the practical temperatures, it was a 1/9 model. So that means if it was 100 kilowatt, 140 kilowatt or something, don't remember the numbers now, but this would be like 17 kilowatts equivalent of.
A lot of.
So all that was done. So that is pretty interesting.
I have a small
Um,
question for you on the Peltier
ah,
cooling.
yeah,
So one of the things that was very of interest to me is like nowadays the graphics card when you put on your computers, they consume huge amount of power.
yeah,
The Nvidia cards we are talking, which are very essential for AI. And I thought of the idea of using Peltier cooler to cool the computer chassis instead of normally the air cooling or liquid cooling.
Right.
that is in vogue these days. Maybe a local refrigerator kind of unit, not exactly a refrigerator, but Peltier cooled kind of unit.
No, but Peltier is suitable for this.
Okay.
We've already done that for a company called Tata Power, in which they had a small unit in one of their, what you would call the military applications, and they were getting 110 degrees centigrade inside the enclosure. So the idea was to reduce it. So I introduced a connector between the inside. We looked at their internal layout. I used cascade cooling. I put one Peltier onto the actual surface that they wanted to cool. I looked at removing about 8 to 10 watts. This was removed, brought to the surface, and at the surface, so at a distance of around 40 mm, I put an aluminium connector which would carry this heat. We looked at how much would be the temperature rise in this stage. That means how much would it give away to the environment, which is the enclosure, and then brought to the surface, put a heat sink on top, and then removed the rest of the heat. So from 101 or 110 degrees that it was achieving earlier, we came right down to 60 or 60 degrees centigrade.
That's
So that
absolutely
was
good.
pretty okay. They could use their. Finally, we were trying to achieve 35, but we could not reach 35. We needed them to change the configuration a little more. It could have been done, but at that time, so we had some issue with Tata Power. So we said, you manage yourself. They must have managed. They are also brainy people.
Maybe there
It
is a
can be done.
product in here.
By the way, if you have any interesting cases like this, you can let me know and I'll put my team on it. We can develop something, make some small prototype which you may be able to directly use.
That would be
You can try it
wonderful.
out.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Because that's one of the biggest challenge I'm facing. Kolkata is a very hot place.
Huh?
Kolkata is a very hot place, hot and
Yes.
humid climate, and having this powerful graphics card.
Yeah.
I have already lost a 1080 Ti. These are costly
Okay.
cards, so this is one of the challenges.
No, this can be done. What is the surface area which you can cool in the graphics card?
It'll
Is it
be
about 20 by 20?
it'll be about 20 by 12, something like that, or 15.
20 by 12. Okay. It can be
It's
done.
actually more. It's
Incidentally,
30. Yeah,
yes,
30 by
ah,
15.
okay. Tata Power was 30 by 15 as a matter of interest. I mean, not of technical, I mean, it's just coincidental. It can be done. We can do it. Okay, so that can be one result of this that I try to see whether I can give you a lead on that.
That would be a great help. So going back, you had like a long journey as an entrepreneur. What did you and you have seen, you have done Made in India before Made in India is such a famous
Yes, yes.
phrase, right? So what would be your advice to new entrepreneurs, both from IIT and elsewhere, who want to get into just outside of college, they want to get into business, you know, how should they prepare themselves? What should they do?
Okay, okay. So here is my advice. I hope it's something that will be palatable to them. Make sure that first point, make sure that you have an idea that is practical, which you are interested in doing, and that you are really focused on. That means you're willing to put all efforts into that.
Right.
If you are willing to do that, I would suggest at least, first of all, at least for 3 months, you must learn enough about finance and about sales and marketing. These are the two things where techno entrepreneurs like us, like me, do not have enough knowledge. You have what you think you know, and it is logical. And we studied economics I think we studied economics and industrial engineering as a side subject in second year or third year. I don't remember. Elective. It was an elective. Um, that knowledge could have been more. But then at the end of the day, I managed to get over that, and my partner got over that. And we were able to, from the second year onward, we were able to do our own accounting, balance sheets, and everything. So at some stage, you need to know this. So is it not much better that you know this at the early stage?
True.
lose 2 3 months in studying this. And one more thing, I think today's IITians may be good at marketing, I don't know, but I find that they are not very practical in understanding marketing or accounts. These two things they must understand. They may understand higher levels of knowledge or data or whatever it is in in terms of economics, criticizing the government policies or criticizing the company's policies or something like that. Maybe they are good at that, but then they are not tested on that. Unless you become a management trainee immediately, and you are already effectively at the third level of management. Everybody is not into that. So there are exceptions. There are guys who immediately start big companies and do the startup work, and they do very well. So this is one bit of information or one bit of activity which I would advise, strongly advise. Either you do it along with whatever work, prototyping you're doing or whatever, but also do it if necessary separately. Okay. The next thing is uh, um, that you should be very clear about your project report and financials, the financials that you're going to achieve. I have been an advisor to a number of startups in Bangalore, and I found one I invested a lot in because they are from Kharagpur, a
Okay.
team of four, out of which two are from Kharagpur, and I kept advising them not to make certain mistakes. For example, right in the very beginning, you have to focus on something. So let me take an example to convey this better. You decide to make, let us say, you decide to set up a service in one city. Let us say servicing of EVs. You want to service EVs because you've understood how to service EVs. If you can get an apprenticeship in an EV, if you can get an apprenticeship in an EV factory or an EV workshop, that would be great. Because, for example, if it's EVs, you should know how to service an EV yourself. It's very simple. You must also know what are the rough part costs, part breakup, type of service that may be required in an EV. So you would thus make a list of activity that you would have to do for an EV setup. So be clear about this and provide for the cost of that. Similarly, for parts, do ABC analysis of parts and try to understand which are the critical parts that we need to maintain as an inventory, which are the parts you don't need to maintain as inventory, what you can easily get in the market, and so on. So this management analysis must be done before you go to any startup fund or even to an angel fund to get money. With this must be done, and it must be done professionally by yourself. Of course, you do all the effort, but take it to a chartered accountant and get a chartered accountant involved with your work right from day one.
Okay.
Of course, he'll say you're not prepared, but at least in the beginning, that means in your first year, you should plan to ensure that you are able to meet the requirements of those who will be demanding from you. Who will be demanding from you? The chartered accountant will ask you questions. The anybody you ask talk to for marketing will ask you questions. These are the two very important things. And those who are going to invest in you, there must be some basic amount that you should be able to clarify to those to whom you will go for co-investment. So some money will have to be put in by the entrepreneur himself.
True.
At least presume 10 to 15%. So this startup fund bootstrapping, as they call. So this bootstrapping is something that in our startup evaluations, the first thing we look for is how much has this person bootstrapped, how much money he and his team have put into this project before they've gone to someone looking for money.
Right.
So let us say you've spent 5 lakhs. Taking a service project, for example, you don't need to spend too much money in the beginning. If you're going for a manufacturing on an e-commerce site, then your investment in it will be very high. If you are going for setting up certain types of e-commerce sites, it is only the program that you make, the graphics, and the presentation that you do. You don't have to spend any money on that. But then your talent must show. Then you must have a team which covers that talent. Which brings me to the next connected thing is that you need to have all the talents that you require in this company. Share, make sure that these people can contribute into the team. Make sure that even though you may have some older people and some younger people, make sure that you have a team that can bring in all the skills that you require to bring into the company. So if you are able to cover this and make sure that every talent that can come in is used, then in the other entrepreneurs, other people who are joining you, you can also look for older people who have had an experience in a certain field. Everyone need not be without experience, but by and large, if we've all the entrepreneurs we have seen all have some experience. Nobody walks into business without some experience, whether it's 3 years or whether it's 4 years or whether it's 5 years. They have some experience. We have seen people ex Flipkart. We have seen people who are ex Amazon, or like that. We have seen a number of people, and they have some experience. Yes, they are not in business, so that is where you need to adapt from an employee to a businessman. You may not even do the same project. You may do something else, but take care of these different directions of business, which can make you go wrong if you think that you can manage. So that is one important thing. Never be overconfident. Be confident, but not overconfident. Now, I had advised these people, don't uh, don't move, don't spread the service to another city until you're already profitable in this city, because this is a locational thing.
Right.
But they did this spread to other cities, so this was not advisable. What I say is, whichever is the unknown part of your business, you need to become a specialist in it, and you need to understand which aspect of this business cannot be transformed into another location until you have sufficient experience and sufficient background. So the confidence of your starting must also result in the confidence that you have been successful at the first step, and therefore you can now deal with the second step and the third step. So that is one of the advices I would give to startup. Minimize your capital costs, maximize your work input from among the partners, minimize the employee strength until you have sufficient funding to be able to expand your employee strength. So these are the things I would recommend.
So,
Try to avoid imports and exports. Try to stick to local in whatever you do, so that you start behaving big when you have that big money. There is no advice that I can have except to live a normal life and keep the work stresses without going over them again and again. Keep them for the office. Second point, don't allow the stress to get you to lose temper. One of the major failings in many young entrepreneurs is anger. Anger doesn't get you anywhere. I used to be like that. It took me about 15 years to get over the anger part. Of course, somehow in many environments, I'm known as a person who never loses temper. That I'm cool and calm and all that stuff. But today, I am really cool and calm, and I have been for about 15 years, 15 or 20 years. Um, it's you just have to. So the steps are: don't dwell over an issue unless you are actually sitting down to solve that issue. Okay, you lost an order. So
engineer's
what are you
approach,
going to?
yes.
Hmm?
The engineer's approach. Either you
Yeah,
solve
exactly.
it, yeah, or don't think
Exactly.
about it.
There's no point going to a disco and thinking, oh no, so why did I tell this fellow that? And now what shall I do? It's pointless. You're not getting anything done. You leave that problem if you're not being able to solve it. Again, sit down with the objective to solve that problem. And these are non engineering problems, though the engineering approach is the best way to solve this problem. So, so if you lose 1 crore, well, you lost a crore. You need to get over it,
Right.
because an entrepreneur, as he goes along in life, he might be successful in the beginning, he might have failures subsequently. Some people are successful in the beginning, some people are not successful Some people are successful at the end. There are many people who are in between who somehow manage the 20 years or 30 years that, as an entrepreneur. You don't have many examples where people uh, become an entrepreneur at the age of 60, for example.
True.
It's not very common, very rare. In fact, I remember someone who was chairman of a company in Calcutta. He decided to retire. He was 60 and he set up a socks making company.